Welcome back to this week's update. And yes, I was at the Super Bowl last week. I did not go to the Super Bowl. I never do. It goes back to my Packer days where I wasn't going to stay for the game if we weren't in it. And I just feel like that I get a better deal watching with my kids and watching the replays than going to the stadium and battling the hassles. I know, sound a little spoiled, but I didn't stay for the game. But interesting to point out a couple things as we continue to talk about league and commissioner discipline and commissioner power. It was interesting going to the Commissioner Goodell's press conference at the Super Bowl. It's kind of his State of the Union, the state of the NFL, and his State of the NFL was under a swirl of clouds, not only inside the room but outside the room. It was rainy in sunny Arizona last week during his press conference. So here's some key things to take away. This deflated balls controversy with now Super Bowl champion New England Patriots continues to go on. The investigation is ongoing from Ted Wells, and Roger Goodell deferred all questions about it to the investigation and didn't really answer anything about it. I continue to think what we're going to come out of this investigation with is not a gotcha moment. Rather than something black and white, it'll be gray, it'll be murky, it'll be something about the way that people doctor their footballs. And that's going to be interesting to see. What's interesting also is beyond the headlines of this Deflategate, we have two other NFL investigations going on into the same inquiry into competitive balance and integrity. One, whether the Cleveland Browns front office was texting to the sideline. This brought out by Kyle Shanahan, now former offensive coordinator who left the Browns, in terms of what was going on where he was getting texts from either the GM or someone in the front office from the press box. That is illegal. That is breaking the rules. That investigation is ongoing. And a third investigation we're learning about, upon the naming of a new head coach, Arthur Blank, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, was met with questions about inflated, artificial noise pumped into the stadium in Atlanta. Again, a violation of integrity, of competitive balance. As I've said before, the NFL or any sports league, all these things we have, a salary cap, revenue sharing, a draft, all these free agency restrictions, it's all in the name of competitive balance and making things as equal level playing field as possible. That changes when you have rules being bended or broken. So we're going to see now 3 investigations from the NFL going on. Deflategate, pumped in crowd noise, and texting. And we'll see how the NFL handles that. That'll be ongoing as we are now in the offseason and no games to distract us from the scrutiny of the NFL, the most powerful sports league, even with these issues. Speaking of issues, one thing Roger Goodell addressed, and I went to the health and safety update given by the NFL, which is concussions being down, in fact, down 25%, to a point where it calculates to 0.43 concussions per game. That really works out to about 0.2 per team, which works out to about a concussion every 5 games. I can't believe that. So the reporting, I worry about that. I worry that, what about these big hits like Edelman had in the Super Bowl, like Russell Wilson had in the championship game? They get examined on the sidelines, they're back. That is not a concussion for this reporting, nor our training camp, where you have so many subconcussive hits. That's not a concussion. So we have to look deeper when we hear about this reporting, and of course we worry about reporting when players want to play through. They don't have guaranteed contracts. They're worried about getting replaced, never getting their job back. That's an issue. So we have that ongoing. And then the other part of concussions is an update to our lecture about the concussion lawsuit against the NFL. When we left last, Judge Brody was having a fairness hearing on November 19th to determine whether the settlement between the NFL and thousands of retired players was adequate, fair, and compensable to these players. When I went to that, I heard a lot of emotional objections to different things, especially about CTE and people who have died from CTE not being able to collect if they died after the preliminary approval date of July 7th. Well, Judge Brody has now come out with suggested changes to the settlement. A second time she's asked for a revision. Now, these are fairly minor, but a couple ones to note. She has asked for any player or former player that dies from CTE, from this brain disease that is very much in the news, after July 7th, but before the final approval date, which may come in the next month or two, they're compensable. Another thing, anyone who played in the World League or NFL Europe before those seasons weren't eligible for recovery, now they are. There are some other things about giving people with financial hardship ways to compense, ways to get recovery, get claims. It's all in there. I think those will be approved by council. They have until February 13th to either accept those or reject them or argue against them. And I think this train is moving towards a final approval by Judge Brody in this massive, complex litigation between NFL retired players and the NFL. For better or worse, that case will wrap up, in my opinion, fairly soon with these little changes going on. So the concussion suit heads towards finality. The final thing is just a note. In the news, Josh Gordon, Cleveland Browns player, has been suspended indefinitely, at least a year. Again, there was alcohol. Well, people are asking, well, what about alcohol? Even a DUI, that doesn't even get more than 1 or 2 game suspension. Well, Josh Gordon was in a multi-stage program, and he was at the last stage, whether it was stage 3 or 4. And my sense is during his protocol and what he's being tested for, it would say no alcohol, not a drop. So once he tested for alcohol, that's it. He's gone. And again, this is a multi-step program. It has stages. Josh Gordon was in a final stage. He has had second chances, third chances, fourth chances. He is now gone. It's a sad story of someone that I've met before. He seems articulate and he seems thoughtful, but obviously has a problem. And now he's not only forced to be away from the NFL, but he's forced to be away from the facility, his teammates, his team as part of the program. That's a final sad note on what is an eventful week in sports, especially the NFL and all field. That's the update for this week. I'll be back next week, as I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. Thanks.